What is going on, everybody? This is your man, Dre Mac. About to get another episode of the Drake My Podcast started. Sorry that this is 8 minutes. Oh, God, look at my hat. Well, that this is like 8 minutes behind schedule. I'm supposed to start at 3 o'clock, but I just got a new kind of like setup now, so it looks a lot brighter in here. Just got to do one of those rings, LED rings. So we're going to be talking about who is the greatest basketball player of all time. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So you already know what it is. I'm live on YouTube. So if you can't stick around on Facebook, I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on Speaker Radio. About to get the live started for got to cut that down. We got to get ready to get the live started for the audio podcast. So this is the first time you're watching the podcast, the video version of the podcast. Remember, I'm on Speaker Radio. I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on Spotify. I'm on wherever you get your podcasts at. Wherever you watch podcasts at, that's where you could be able to find the Dre Mac Podcast Show. So all you got to do is look up the Dre Mac Podcast Show. The Dre Mac Podcast Show, scrolling right now on your screen, and you could be able to listen to the podcast. So just give me a second. We're about to get this thing cracking, and we'll be right back with more of the Dre Mac Podcast Show. All right, we're back. Getting ready to start the audio version of the podcast. So let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Make sure that you guys are liking and sharing the podcast. Make sure you guys are starting a watch party with the podcast. Let's get some interaction going on. We're talking about the greatest. It ain't like I'm going to be biased on anybody or anything like that. I'm just stretching, It's not like I'm going to be, talking about one particular person being great or nothing like that. I'm not going to do anything biased. But we're all going to get into the conversation. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing cracking. Yeah. You just reached the hottest right now. This is the Dre Mac Show. Now, without further ado, here is your host, Dre Mac. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Dre Mac, with another episode of the Dre Mac Podcast Show. Coming to you live from Speaker Radio, coming to you live via StreamYard. Talking about the greatest player of all times. Of course, this is Wednesday, October 13th. And we're going to talk about the greatest basketball player of all time, that GOAT discussion. Congratulations on the Los Angeles Lakers for winning the championship. That's probably why we're getting into this discussion, because there's been a lot of questions about, LeBron surpassed Michael Jordan as the greatest, and he doesn't get any damn respect. That's exactly what LeBron said. I need to earn my damn respect. You give me my respect. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why LeBron James is one of the greatest players of all time, or is he the greatest player of all time? Is Michael Jordan the greatest player of all time? Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We got plenty of people to talk about. Before I get into that, again, I'm live on Facebook. I'm live through the audio podcast on Speaker Radio. I'm live on YouTube right now, so make sure you guys are putting your comments in. I want to hear from you guys, so we can get into this discussion. Make sure that you are registered to vote. I am pushing voting big time. I'm pushing voting, especially in the Black community. There's too much of a stigmatism that says that Black people's vote don't count. If the Black vote doesn't count, why during the congressional hearing for the new Supreme Court judge did they bring up voter suppression and how people are buying a way for you not to vote? They're spending millions of dollars so you don't vote. So let's get out the notion that your vote doesn't matter. Your vote matters for the attorney generals, the prosecutors, the people that's going to be representing you in your neighborhoods. We're not just talking about the presidential election. He's just a small, minute part of the whole bigger picture of government. So make sure you are registered to vote. And if you are, exercise your right to vote. They do not want you to vote anyway. And we keep listening to people who keep telling us that look like us, that sound like us, and tell us not to vote. That is idiotic. Do we have political power where we could be able to shift the narrative? No, because it takes money to do that. And they're spending a lot of money so you don't have to vote. It wouldn't surprise me right now if they pay certain people that's pro-Black, quote unquote, to tell you not to vote. It wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they were paying these people to tell you not to go vote, and continue to and continue to push propaganda for you not to vote. So it's very, very vital and very important for you to go out and vote. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. Go out and exercise your right to vote. There's nothing wrong with voting. If people tell you that voting is wrong and it don't and this, that, and the other, then you're going to be sadly mistaken. So I want you guys to go out and exercise your right to vote, because locally your vote matters. Your vote matters about the taxes that's going in the schools. Their vote matters about the people who are getting into Congress and the House and the Senate, the government, local government. All of this stuff matters. And if you don't think local government matters, this is why your neighborhoods look like this. Y'all don't want to hear that because we're supposed to be talking about another subject. But let's be honest. The reason why a lot of the neighborhoods look the way that they do is because we just blindly vote for people and we blame it on, the president or whatever, and say, well, they're the ones who's doing this. We're not looking at local government. We're not looking at Congress. You automatically go, well, the president did it. When the people who's running your local Congress is the one who's making sure that your neighborhood still look like trash, won't go out and clean it up, help you clean it up. There's no funding or money that's being traveled through here, even though businesses are being built out in Black neighborhoods or close to Black neighborhoods. And that money that's being filtered in by that business, that big business is being there, is not filtered in to make sure that the Black neighborhoods that's around that business is thriving. So please, it's not voting for just Democrat, because I would never tell someone just to vote for a certain party. To me, that's even more idiotic. Go ahead, do your research, find out who fits the interests of you best, who corresponds with the same interests. If that's a Republican, vote Republican, be bipartisan. You don't have to just vote Democrat. You can vote Libertarian. You can vote whatever you want. But I'm telling you, go out and exercise your right to vote and get people in here who's actually going to clean up the streets, clean up your neighborhoods. And that's really all I got to say about that. And again, shout out to everybody who's watching me on Facebook Live, who's taking the time out to listen to the Dre Max Show, to watch anytime I come on Facebook Live or YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Let's go ahead and get into this conversation about the GOAT. Now, like I said, LeBron James just won his 4th NBA title, and He's the only player in NBA history to win. Uh, who's been a superstar? Put it more like this: who's the superstar of his team? Who has won four titles with three different teams? So congratulations to him. So the biggest debate right now is who is the greatest basketball player of all time? Who is the GOAT? Now, again, I'm not going to be biased or, tug on my shirt and say who I think is the greatest player of all time. I mean, that's not my job. My job is not to give my personal opinion on who I think is the greatest basketball player of all time. But what I will do is give you perspective, because I think when we go into these debates, we watching Undisputed. We're watching First Things First, First Take. We're watching all these pundits give their opinion. And I'm gonna tell you one thing: when you're watching ESPN, Fox, FS1, and all these other pundits, remember, they're also there to entertain you. They're not going to give you the full story. They're not going to put everything in context. They're really there to entertain you, and the GO conversation pulls ratings. So when you hear something that's just absolutely ridiculous come out of, let's say, Nick Wright's mouth, or Skip Bayless's mouth, or Colin Cowherd's mouth, or Marcellus Wiley, which a lot of things come out of his mouth is ridiculous, but I don't even want to get into him. But when you hear these things, you start to look at it and be like, well, maybe so and so is the greatest player of all times. I would give you something in context when we're talking about football, and everybody says Tom Brady is the greatest football player alive. It was the greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady, and rightfully so. He's been to 9 Super Bowls. He's won 6 of 9 Super Bowls, which is freaking incredible for anyone to go to 9 Super Bowls. I mean, the kid has been playing for 20 years. So he's not a kid anymore. He's 43 years old. So the guy's been playing in a high level for years. And the way that the New England Patriots have structured their team, they structured their team for success. So 9 Super Bowls is completely incredible. But when you start talking about the greatest player of all time, people say, well, Joe Montana is. He went to 4 Super Bowls and never lost. Had one of the greatest to me, the greatest wide receiver of all time. I mean, people will argue it's Randy Moss. Some people will say it's Terrell Owens, But Jerry Rice was one of the greatest football players of all time. Greatest wide receiver. To me, it was the greatest wide receiver of all time. But they'll say, Joe, it's like, well, Brady has more titles. True. And if you count 4-0 into that conversation that he went to 4 Super Bowls and never lost with Joe Montana, but then you also had to bring in Terry Bradshaw, because Terry Bradshaw went to 4 Super Bowls in the 70s and never lost. Did he not have the greatest defense of all time? Yes, he did. He had the steel curtain behind him. Did he have one of the greatest running backs of all times in Franco Harris? Yes. Did he have one of the greatest wide receivers of all times? Yes, Lynn Swann. Nobody talks about how great he was as far as quarterback. They would never put Terry Bradshaw in the GO conversation. Ever. Period. But yet he's won 4 Super Bowls if we're looking at it in that context. If you look at, I'll give you another one. You're looking at the way that the Jordan and LeBron debate goes. They said, well, LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. You've never seen someone with his size, speed, athleticism play basketball before, which they do have a point to a certain degree, because we said, and see, a lot of people don't have revisionist history, because when we start talking about the GO conversations, we don't look at Dr. J. And a lot of people that grew up in the 70s, Dr. J was their dude. Michael Jordan's dude was David Thompson. You know what I mean? David Thompson was a bad dude. When people disingenuously say that, well, those players are not as skilled as they are now, We're not having revisionist history. We're not looking at those players at their skill level at that particular era, because all these players were NBA players. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't come from the YWCA or the YMCA and start hooping in the gym. That wasn't at your at the local parks. And a lot of these dudes, especially if you was from New York, played at Rutgers, where hoopers went to go hoop. The real hoopers went to go hoop. These old school cats that people talk about, they act like Gerald Dawkins wasn't a monster. You know what I mean? I mean, Tackling Thunder, they act like Charles Barkley sucked. Man, what MVP in a year? Michael Jordan was I think 32-7 and 2 steals with 5 assists. And Charles Barkley won the MVP over Michael Jordan that year. In the 92-93 year? But see, Jordan won. See, and the thing is, when I look at LeBron did something incredible that's probably never going to be done in NBA history. A superstar being able to go, for one, 8 straight championships. Went to 9, who's been in 10 total championships. But at one point, he went to 8 straight championships. Can we say the East was diluted, wasn't as strong? We could completely say that. Because LeBron dominated, again, revisionist history. LeBron and company dominated the East so bad, nobody else could come out the East. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like a guy that came in Michael Jordan. And remember, and again, revisionist history. The only team, and let me make sure that I'm saying this right, because I believe that this is true. The only team out the West to win a championship during the 80s was the Lakers, because the East was dominant. If it wasn't the Celtics, it was the Pistons in the 80s. And I believe in 1980, the only other team that went to an NBA championship was the 76ers in 1980, and they were beaten by the Lakers. If I'm having revisionist history now, in the comment section, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but, the Lakers dominated the West. They made people in the West look like trash, because that's how dominant Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, how dominant Magic Johnson was. And in the 80s, it was Magic and Bird. Before Michael Jordan really started taking the league by storm, it was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They set the pinnacle of basketball in the 80s. You can literally say in the 80s, the 2 greatest players of all times in the 80s, you can say Magic and Bird. Can literally put those 2 guys as far as GOATs in the GOAT coverage. Nobody really talks about Magic. Magic didn't. See, the thing about, again, is revisionist history. Because we're talking about dominance on the basketball court, right? Dominating the basketball court. And some people say, well, scoring the basketball is dominant. True. The difference between, I would say this, because really LeBron James and Michael Jordan are the same type of players. As far as this, when you look at Michael Jordan, you've seen a person who dominated their portion of the game as far as, I got to score. Michael Jordan was like, I'm the scorer of this team. I play lockdown defense, but my job is to score and to play defense. Your job is to rebound. Your job is to facilitate the offense, but I'm scoring the buckets. And if I can't score the buckets, then I'll pass it to you. When he was with Doug Collins, that was a philosophy of Doug Collins' offense. Feed it to Michael and let Michael get his buckets. And then when he went against the bad boy Pistons, he couldn't get over that hump because all he knew was, I got to score. And at that time, he didn't have the mid-range game, that mid-range game that he developed afterwards. So he didn't keep getting beat up in the lane every time he went to the hoop. What LeBron has done, instead of being a scorer, he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to facilitate the offense. I'm going to score. I'm going to get all the rebounds that I can. I'm going to get all the assists I can. And I'm going to still average 27 points. Incredible. But he created a role. That's what he did. No different than Mike scoring 37 points a game with 8 rebounds. Seven assists in the 88, 89 year when he was like 37, 8, 7, and 2. Like the most dominant basketball player that season. Nobody was seeing Michael. Michael couldn't go nowhere because when the bad boy Pistons say you ain't coming to the lane, they meant it. But in that era, you got body slammed to the hardwood. You got knocked upside your head in the hardwood. What makes LeBron James so great in this era makes him the GOAT of this era. Because there's kids who's growing up like, I want to be like LeBron James. I will probably never be his size. I will probably never have his speed because the man is 6'8", 6'9", run like a deer, the size of Karl Malone. I couldn't stand Karl Malone. Couldn't stand him I could not stand Karl Malone. But because they play and somebody didn't agree with me, I was saying, dude, you need to know basketball. To me, they play more of a European style of basketball than they did in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And again, nobody brings up Kobe Bryant in that era too, because Kobe was one of the most dominant players in his era. At his particular time, at his apex. Was he beat by my Celtics? Yeah. Did the truth put some buckets on him? Yeah, he did. But Kobe won 5. And they say, well, he got the early victories with Shaq. But they had the same stat total. So who was carrying who? Or was they just two great teammates and their greatness was just on display? And then once Kobe got over shooting air balls, Kobe never looked back. Same as once Michael Jordan got over going into the lane to get beat upside his head, he never looked back. What made Jordan so great is that literally when he put out the commercial, when I was a kid, he put out the commercial, I want to be like Mike. Like Mike. If I could be like Mike. Remember I Like Mike commercials? And then someone named Kobe Bean Bryant took that literally as like, I'm going to be like Mike. Mike is the only, Michael Jordan's Bulls teams are the only teams to three-peat twice. And the first three-peat, after his dad died, the gambling issues, the gambling situation, whatever was going on in the NBA at that time, whatever he was feeling, he was burnt out. And I truly believe after watching The Last Dance that it was because of his father not being there. I truly 180% believe that's because of his father not being there. But a lot of people poo-poo on the competition that he went against once he got to the championship. It wasn't the competition, it was him. Just like how people bring up, man, I don't think no team would have beat the Golden State Warriors of Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, what's the other kid's name? Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. No team would have beat that team because that team was the juggernaut to LeBron's team. Just like how Michael's teams were the juggernaut to a Portland Trail Blazers team, who it wasn't going to be. Clyde Drexler wasn't going to hold Michael all day. Cliff Robinson wasn't going to do it. God rest his soul. Kevin Duckworth wasn't going to do it. God rest his soul. What's my name? Terry Porter wasn't going to do it. Mike was just so dominant. He made people look like trash. Just like how LeBron James was so dominant in the East, he made other people look like garbage. He made a Bulls team with Derrick Rose at his apex before the injuries. Jimmy Butler was on that team. And he made that team look like trash. They had one of the greatest defensive teams of that year. But LeBron and company made them dudes look like trash because it was LeBron. It's the greatness of LeBron. LeBron doesn't have to come out and say, y'all need to give me my damn respect. He doesn't have to say that. But it's almost like, and this is the problem that I have with LeBron. The only problem I have with LeBron, you looking for validation, brother, you already have it. You already have it. Dude, you went to 10 championships. One more, and you matched Bill Russell. But just like the Bills of the 90s, nobody's going to give you a pass being a runner-up either. Because you are a 6-time runner-up. The Bills of the Buffalo Bills of the 1990s, and that's why nobody calls Jim Kelly the GOAT of quarterbacks. They went to 4 straight championships, Super Bowl championship games. 4 straight. Never been done in the history of the NFL. They lost to the NFC East. That same NFC East, who division right now is being led by a 2-3 team. They got beat by the New York Giants, the Washington Redskins, and Dallas twice. And the only game they could have won, which it wasn't for Scott Norwood, because one thing I don't have is revisionist history. I don't have revisionist history, but like, oh, these people sucked. No, some people were so good, they made them look like that. But if it wasn't for Scott Norwood's wide right and the Super Bowl, the 2019 Super Bowl versus the New York Giants, they might be looking at the Buffalo Bills a little bit differently now. But nobody puts them at one of those apex teams because they lost 4 straight. It happens. Washington was just better. New York was just better. Dallas was most definitely better. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me see. They lost to, Washington, yep. Lost to Washington those 4 times. Because once San Francisco got there, San Francisco beat the Chargers that year and completely embarrassed the Chargers. So I'm just saying, it's revisionist history. And I'm going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to play a song from my man's up at Midwest Saloons. This is I Can't Breathe. This is the Drake Mack Podcast Show.
You know, it's a shame that I probably won't be able to get all these names out, you know, in this 20-second interlude because the police killing up so many of our people. But I'm trying to get out anyway. This song is going out to George Floyd. My niggas yelling for years. Since the days we were slaves, we've been drowning in tears. Everybody break the law, that ain't specific to black. Still the prisons is packed. We were set up for that. Put the crack in the straps, we're the blacks is that. Broken communities is hopeless, let them scrap for that. How they portray us in the media, got people in fear. Suburban cops in the hood, tricking fingers again. While we killing each other, we gotta look in the mirror. How we got each other, if we don't care, who cares? They want a peaceful protest for blue on black hair. For every damn brother, all I see is myself. So
I'm just now getting y'all comments. I had to go to a commercial so I could be able to start looking at your comments. Hey Jermaine, you were right. If you're still alone, you're right. It was 83. That was the only other Eastern Conference team that won a championship in the 80s. No, let me take that back. It was 83, and then the Pistons in 88, 89. It was the Celtics, Pistons, and the 76ers. That's it. And I got to holler at Midwest Saloon, too. So Midwest Saloon, salute to y'all. I got to holler at y'all. I need to get this songs out to y'all. Bradshaw was very good, but again, nobody. If you bring up just rings, why you're not bringing up Terry Bradshaw? If you're looking at rings, so I'm trying to put it in context. Hey, what's up, Tipo Lee? Tipo Lee, what's the crack? Police don't make me feel safe. Call me overrated, because they always trying to pop us. Every nigga ain't a dope dealer. Every cop and a hero, some be cripples, some be straight killers. How many more I gotta die before they fucking kill us? You're supposed to protect, why the fucking kill us? If I pronounce any names, said anything twice, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying this shit. Jamar Clark, Mario Woods, Antonio LeGreer, you know? Brandon God, Kim Dinkins, we gotta change, y'all. Alvin Sterling, we wanna change. You know? All we want is change, all we want is justice. That's why we protest. We need a positive, we need to go in a positive direction for real. We're not just yelling and squabbling in the streets just to make noise. We wanna change. And welcome back to more of the Dre Mac Podcast Show. I'm just now seeing my comments. So my man Jermaine Pugh, since we're back now, Jermaine Pugh said the Lakers were the champs in the 80s, 76ers are 83. So the 76ers, the Boston Celtics, and the Detroit Pistons was the only Eastern Conference teams to go to the championship game during the 80s. And the Pistons went back to back. So shout out to you. Shout out to Jermaine. Jermaine, my guy. And Jermaine gave me a video. Well, okay, so let's go into this because I want to talk about this video a little bit. And this video was very incredible, very informative. They was talking about the difference between LeBron James and what they don't say when we're talking about the GOATs if we're looking at LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. And in this particular video, it was saying we're not looking at the numbers because we need to look at the numbers individually and by position. And for how many other years? I think 16 for the first 16 years, they considered LeBron James a small forward. Now he's more of a point forward, something that Scottie Pippen really made famous. So he's more of a point forward now. But if you look at his position compared to Michael Jordan's position, Michael Jordan is a shooting guard, greatest shooting guard of all time. If you look at LeBron James is like the third as far as PER, player efficiency rating. LeBron James PER is, I want to say, he's second or third under Larry Bird and somebody else. I think it is Scotty, but I think Larry Bird is first as far as PER, player efficiency rating, and Michael Jordan is number one. His position, it was like, well, he shoot better. And one thing that they was talking about, they always bring this up, but never really talk about. They say, well, LeBron James has a greater shooting percentage than Michael Jordan. If you look at it context, he said, if you look at context for 500 shots per season, and he brought this in context, he would say, well, you would have to say Tyson Chandler and DeAndre Jordan is the greatest shooters of all times because they have a higher percentage. That's because from 0 to 3 feet, they're like in the 80s because the basket is right there. And he said a lot of times it comes off of lobs and different shots like that. And the same thing with LeBron James. LeBron James in the paint, 0 to what? I want to say he measured it from 0 to 14 feet. He is 59% from 0 to 15 feet. And one thing that I love about Skip Bayless always says this. Now, I don't agree with Skip Bayless on everything, but one thing that he says is LeBron James is the greatest driver of the basketball that he's ever seen, which is absolutely true. In this style of basketball today, that's very reminiscent of European basketball because they play more zone. When was the last time you seen an NBA team play zone in the 80s or the 90s? They play man-to-man. It was bully ball in the 70s. They didn't play no zone unless you was playing like What? DeVry University? You're not playing zone. That was like literally for high school and college. So you play more man to man. So now with the European style, what I mean by European style of basketball, more of an up and down game, more emphasis on the three. That's why Europeans came over to the league and was more effective with their shot, big man with shots. That's why Tony Kukoc. Why do you think Jerry Krause went out his way to go get a Tony Kukoc, who was the Michael Jordan of Croatia? There's a reason why he went to go get that, because it was rare to see a man the size of Tony Kukoc. And I want to say Tony Kukoc was what, 6'9", 6'10", that could shoot like that, that could drop threes, who had a mid-range game. They started to see once that 92 Olympics happened, I think the NBA started getting a clue into the future. So yeah, like Petrovic, you know, a guy like Petrovic, I can't think of his first, I can't pronounce his first name, but used to play for the Lakers, God rest his soul. But he came to the league, 3-point shooter, back cold with his shot. Cold with his shot. So the league now started to implement more of the European style of game. For one, it keeps their star players from being injured like it did in the 80s, in the 90s. You know, you don't see as many fights. I seen Larry Bird clock a dude. This is where you stole on. I forgot who it was. I don't think it was Kurt Rambis. I forgot who he stole on. Like offhand, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Still, and again, we're talking about dominance. Dominance at your position. I think that's where we get the GOAT conversations. We need to start bringing in context by position. We start getting to go. Do I think Michael Jordan is the greatest player I've ever seen in my whole entire life? Yes, but I didn't live in the 70s when Dr. J was here. So some people will say Dr. J is the greatest player they ever seen in all eyes. It's really just your perception. Your perception of that player on the basketball court, your perception of that player in your mind when you're watching them and you're rooting for them. And it's okay if you don't think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. That's your prerogative. Because in your mind, you feels like someone's better. Do I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all times? No. But is he now part of Mount Rushmore, or has been a part of Mount Rushmore? Yes, of basketball. He literally took the place for me for Larry Bird. Larry Bird, my favorite small forward of all time. Favorite. For a man that looks so unathletic with that mustache and that hair to dominate the way that he did. The man went to the three-point contest and didn't even take off his warm-up. Busting heads in the three-point competition. Didn't even take the man's warm-up, didn't even come off. And he's still draining threes. With the old Converse on. And Morris, you're right. Dr. George Garvin, the Iceman. You know, I mean, it's revisionist history because we're looking at the way the game is played today. And again, like I said, it's European ball to me. That's what I see. I see a European style of basketball, more universal, because the way the Europeans play is really the way the world plays. If you go back and look at the Olympics, this is what made the Dream Team and the Dream Team 2 so scary. Because they was still playing American style basketball. They wasn't jacking up just threes after threes after threes after threes after threes after threes. That was what they did in Europe, because they were not athletic enough to just start dunking on people like how my man Vince Carter did, and how Kobe Bryant, man, you the greatest, one of the greatest. I mean, people, you could say Dream Team 1, Dream Team 2 could have beat Dream Team 1. They both was awesome because they had GOATs just sitting on the team. You had Bird, Magic, Pippen, Scotty, Barkley, Robinson, Stockton, Malone. I mean, good God, then you turn around and you get Kobe, Melo, Bron. I mean, CP3. I mean, dude, you think they're gonna win? Vince Carter. Oh my God. Most gruesome. Chris Bosh was on that team. Most gruesome dunk I've ever saw in my whole entire life. Vince Carter dunking on people. Kobe Bryant going to the lane like he did because of the style of basketball. And when you combine the speed and athleticism of today's players, is really basically what the difference is in the eras. Is the athleticism has been. I put it like this, and people might not like this. They might. I don't care what you say. But I'm going to be honest, man. We put more emphasis on our kids playing sports than anything else. So you're going to create bigger, faster, stronger players. Because we put the emphasis not only really on the kids' education, can you get to the league? If you're big, strong, and fast, I'm going to create you to get to a league, whether it's basketball, football. I mean, you can say what you want, but if a guy don't even have to go opt out of college, I don't need to go there. I can go make millions in the league. So you got more and more people trying to go to the league, which more and more people are going to be training. More and more kids start younger. Michael Jordan played baseball as a kid. He wasn't out there hooping. As a kid, he loved baseball. He didn't start becoming Michael Jordan until his junior year or his junior year in high school. That's after a year, after getting cut off his freshman team, being a sophomore, playing a little better. He went from 6'2" to 6'6" until his senior year. They went and got him, played him in North Carolina. And I think what people don't understand is that Olajuwon went number 1 overall pick that year. I think Sam Bowie was second. Yeah, I think Sam Bowie was second. Nobody was expecting Mike Jordan to be Michael Air Jordan. Nobody. They just needed another shooting guard, and hopefully he could give us 15 to 18 points a game. Hopefully, because it's basically what his average was in college. Because you had James Worthy, you had I think Sam Perkins was on that team. So he was just getting basically what he could get. Unless the play was called for him, like in the championship game. So nobody was expecting Michael to be who he was. He grew into that. He became that. And people say, well, people didn't question Michael Jordan. Oh, yes, they did, because I had WGN. Oh, if you grew up with cable in the 80s, you had WGN from American Cablevision. Oh, I'm having revisionist history now. Somebody go ahead and give me one of them organ plays. There. So nobody's seen him coming. We knew about LeBron James as a sophomore in high school. We seen this train coming. We seen it coming. So when they put him as the chosen one, it was like, you better live up to this. Yes, we looking at Zion right now. He's the next LeBron James. No, he's not. He ain't even the same height as LeBron James. He could dunk. He's heavier. He looks more like the second coming of Charles Barkley. And that's not a knock against Charles Barkley, because Charles Barkley is a Hall of Famer. One of the greatest, him and Dennis Rodman, one of the greatest rebounders I've ever seen in my life. I ain't seen a game where both of these dudes grabbed like 20 boards. They was fighting over rebounds. So when you're looking at these particular individuals like this, you really got to have revisionist history, because people doubted Mike. Mike couldn't get past the Bad Boy Pistons. Mike couldn't get past the second round. People say, okay, are you as good is you say you are. Yeah, my man Kitty Jones, he said he became Michael Jordan in North Carolina. All of these Smith players get big numbers when they get to the league. Walter Davis, I would give you that. I would say he wasn't what we expected because if he was what he became to be, he would have been the first overall pick in Houston and not Akeem Olajuwon. But Houston needed a big man. Because remember, this was a big man's league. So they needed a big man. They wasn't Houston wasn't gonna get nowhere when you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar doing what he's doing in LA. So you needed a big man to be able to counter how great Kareem was. And Kareem is one of my favorite players of all time. And I'm mad because I kind of because I was a kid, in the 80s. 87, I think I really started getting into basketball. Man, he was already 107 years old by the time I really started watching basketball. I didn't like the Lakers. Let me get that straight. Let me make sure that you understand this correctly. I am nowhere close to a Lakers fan because I'm a Boston Celtics fan and a Bulls fan. And if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, I would never be a Bulls fan. But it was because of Michael Jordan made me want to follow the Bulls. And yeah, social media at this time, you get 24-hour scrutiny. You only had scrutiny for Michael Jordan at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, and on ESPN. And ESPN wasn't 24-hour news channel either. They actually showed sports and Sports Center. But they question Michael. Can Michael ever even get past the second round? Can Michael ever get past the bad boy Pistons? They really, oh my God, after that first loss in Detroit, they was like, okay, this guy says he's Superman, but is he really Superman? Then he goes again. This time, they're implementing the triangle offense. It was 89-90. They're implementing the triangle offense. And that was the migraine game for Scottie Pippen because Scottie Pippen started becoming on her own. And people need to get out this mess when they arguing because they hear Shannon Sharp say it all the time. Oh, Michael Jordan he didn't win nothing with Scottie Pippen. Well, Scottie Pippen was drafted there. He was a draft pick of the Seattle SuperSonics who traded their pick to the Bulls. Jerry Krause wanted Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen averaged 8 points a game in 87, 86, 87. I think it was like 11 points a game in 87, 88. 88, 89 is when he came into his own. He really came into his own. But even Scottie was saying, man, if it wasn't for Michael pushing me, I probably would never been the player that I am today. And Michael Jordan said out of his own mouth, that's the greatest teammate that I ever had. So it was people that ridiculed Michael Jordan. And you're right, Michael. Portland didn't want him because they had Clyde Drexler. They didn't want 2 shooting guards, which would make sense because I think it honestly, if Akeem the Dream didn't go to Houston, he would have went to Portland so they could remake what was that? Was it Slam and Jammer from the Houston college team days. And Kenny said, National Player of the Year, the Big Man League is the only reason why Sam Bowie was chosen over Michael Jordan in Portland. Yes. You said, I want to call. Five Slam and Jammer. Yeah. I couldn't think of it. Couldn't think of it first. And I'm sorry, Rico, you can't call because I don't have another phone because I'm using that to film this right now. But you look at it like like I said, you look at it like this. Jordan came into the league with not nearly the expectations of LeBron had. LeBron has literally checked all the markers as far as longevity, as far as championship. Man won 4 but never would take that away from him. I don't care if he played DeVal University in the bubble and won the championship. He won. And the Miami beat my Boston Celtics, so I was rooting for GOAT James anyway. Is he my GOAT in my eyes? No. Is he the GOAT of this generation? Hell yeah. Without no ifs, ands, or buts. Yes, he is the greatest player of this generation right now. I'm saying 2010 on up to 2020. Before that, I'm sorry, it was Kobe. It was Kobe. Kobe took out AI. AI was one of my favorite players of all time. Made him look stupid. And if it wasn't for the inner turmoil, man, you never know how many championships Shaq and Kobe could have won together. So you got to look at it two. You got to look at it two ways. You got to have revisionist history, because then you can look at Magic Johnson in the 80s, Larry Bird in the 80s. Before that, George Gervin was with the Spurs in the 70s. You could look at Dr. J. You could look at all kinds of players. This is really your personal preference, and I'm gonna try to do that because I'm live. Let me do this. Let me see if I can get you on. And I'm about to play. Let me see. About to play Vigilante featuring Riz Illuminated, excuse me, warm up on the Dre Mack Show.
Session. Shake the rust off a little bit. You can't hate the format. That's why I use your ego as a doormat for the peons to get beat on. Know damn well you feed on what we be on. So be warned, the storm is not calm. My mindset is my calm. Victory is the outcome. For income, I crack your jaw. Grass knuckle, make the hardest thug buckle. 969, your motherfuckers in trouble. Pulling powerful, potent poison, killing the noise. When I recognize the snake, flame on these niggas, then let them burn in the lake. For goodness sake, nigga, you just a fake nigga. I think it's kind of crazy how we got this game. Everybody copy us, but it is not a thing. By the time they reach our heights, we gon' be out of planes. Humble calls while we watch our critics burning flames. They can't see it.
Rico, check your inbox.
They can't see a day that we ain't gonna be on top of things. We mold side way before the name. No cosign cause you paved the lanes. This is game. I'm always on the go with MC Blue Shades. Making sure they understand it's not even my aim. What's known in this world ain't gotta be explained. If I told you I'm the light, then you should be afraid. Because you must have crossed my line, now you see a day. The way I put these words together made my heaven gates. I live in the highest conscious to the source I made.
Check the inbox, Rico.
Multi-million dollars that's in my family paid. You know what I'm saying? 969 over everything. That been the movement. Just a corporation. And what time it is. Let's go.
Welcome back to more of the Dre Mack Show. Kenny put while we are listening to this song, Kenny put as far as LeBron James is one of the great players, the greatest, and at the end of the day, he will have almost every record. His career speaks for itself, and it does. He's the most dominant player in his position. Period. He said LeBron is the greatest talent the NBA has ever seen. He covers every box, and he's a generational player who could have played in any era. And for his size, I believe he could have. Size to speak to me. This is just to me. This is my personal opinion. He reminds me so much of Magic Johnson, the way Magic played. Now, of course, Magic wasn't ducking on people like LeBron did, and he didn't have the type of 3-point shot
I never liked Magic Shot. Magic Shot looked weird to me, but Magic could dominate and he could play at every position on the floor if need be. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. It could play. It could hoop. You know what I mean? So to me, that's who LeBron reminds me of. When people say that we never seen a talent like LeBron, well, actually you have, but because you don't have revisionist history, we act like this is just something. Just oh my God, he's an alien. He came from the sky. The only difference is he dunks and Magic didn't. The Magic could run the floor with the best of them. Magic Johnson could run literally the floor with the best of them. Had one of the best basketball IQs of all time. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give LeBron his props, but I've never seen nobody besides, well, I would say the only other person with court vision that could run the floor like him was Jason Kidd, but Jason Kidd couldn't shoot to save his life, for real. But the way that Magic, man, it was Showtime. I used to hate the Lakers because it was Showtime. That championship that the Lakers won. I want to say that was the '87 championship versus Boston. Man, he made Boston look stupid on several occasions. I mean, made them look stupid on several occasions. This Kitty said, "I'm a Kobe." I'm a Kobe and Magic and Kareem, but LeBron can make all of his players better. He has made many players in the league, and he has. I would never take. Don't get this wrong. I would never take anything away from LeBron James. One thing, okay. Let me. This okay. When we're talking about the GOAT conversation, and I'm still waiting for my brother to get on. I sent him a link. But the reason why people do not like LeBron James, I'm gonna tell you the main reason why. When he left Cleveland and linked up in Miami, that was strike number one. It's the way he did it. Am I mad at him? No. Just like people don't need to be mad at Kevin Durant for going to Golden State and winning 2 championships. You can call him deluded. You can call him whatever you want to. So whatever. You can say say what you want. But if Magic, I mean, if LeBron can do it, then so can he. And we got my brother Rico. What's up, Rico?
Hey, what's happening? What's happening? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Alrighty.
So congratulations to the Lakers. I called it when LeBron got there. I said the man's gonna win him a championship. Exactly what I said. I said LeBron's gonna win him a championship before he leaves out of LA, and look what happened. I should be Nostradamus.
Yeah.
So
Great. I just wish they could have a parade out there because I was gonna go.
because of COVID, you really can't have a parade. So you know, it is what it is. So we're talking. Okay, so I'm talking about the GOAT conversation, and I'm looking at it more like this. And this is something that Arion posted. When I posted that I was going to do this podcast today, my boy Arion, who's a Lakers fan, so shout out to him too. He said people got GOATs in different eras, and I said you can see that LeBron took the torch from Kobe and the Lakers as far as the dominance, but then you also had to put in the Spurs dominance in the 2000s too, with Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward of all time. You can say Shaq is one of the greatest of all time, but as far as dominance, Kareem was the most dominant center of all time. And we're talking about PER, player efficiency rating. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest center of all time. There's nowhere close. Nobody close. And the reason why nobody gives Shaq that is because Shaq fell off at the tail end of his career. After he left the Lakers, it became the Big Sun, the Big Heat, the Big Shamrock, and whatever else he was.
The Big Cactus, the Big Nostradamus.
The Big Nostradamus, all of the big whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Dre, let me ask you a question. What about Will Chamberlain? Where is his PR at?
I think his PR was like third compared to Kareem. It was like I want to say it was Kareem. When I looked at it, I want to say it was Kareem. I think Hakeem Olajuwon, and then Will Chamberlain, and then Shaq. But I gotta look at it. I gotta look at it because I'm just going off of memory. But Wilt was dominant. But I think Wilt started to again when the big man starts to tail end. It goes to the tail end of his career. You know what I'm saying? As far as like player efficiency rating is not as great as
And
when
see,
he was.
I don't think that's kind of fair. That's why I don't really dig too much into player efficiency rating because you know what I'm saying. Of course, you're going to decline at the tail end of your career, but that doesn't mean you know what I'm saying. You at the height of your, I would like to see his highest player efficiency rating because to me it seems like Will Chamberlain was the most dominant player of all time. Just the way he dominated the league at the time. I mean, even Michael Jordan, he dominated, but he wasn't like not dominate. You know what I mean when I say Will
Right,
Chamberlain was dominating.
right. But you can also say the same thing about Kareem. He just scored 100 points in one game. But you can say the same thing about Kareem because have I ever seen anybody block a sky hook? Nope, not once, not once. But as far as like when they brought up David Thompson had 1 year, and that was Michael Jordan's favorite player. But David Thompson had 1 year where he was literally the most dominant player in the league, just like Jordan in 88, 89 during the season was the most dominant player of that year. 37, I think it was like 37, 8, 7, and 2 steals a game is incredible. Like literally incredible. He didn't go nowhere, but
Wait,
it was incredible.
but you know there are seasons where Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points a game.
Yeah,
50, 50, 50 points a game.
right. But that's what I'm saying. It just really is just it's just the year, the era. You know what I'm saying? But it goes up and it's really is hard because the one thing that people is knocking Bill Russell about is because Bill Russell won 11 championships, right? 11 straight
Yeah,
championships. It was only
11.
10, yeah, but it was only 10 teams in the league, and their playoffs was really like 3 games. You know what I
No,
mean? So,
honestly, I think this is why Bill Russell doesn't get, and I would say the respect. At the time, his team was winning champions, but just like I said, it was Wilt Chamberlain who was universally recognized as the best player at that time, even
right,
though he couldn't beat the Celtics.
right.
And if you look at, okay, rebound per,
Almost like LeBron, right? With the way they talk about LeBron now, LeBron couldn't get past Golden State, but universally renowned as the greatest basketball player.
yes, yes,
Right,
just not the greatest team, just
right,
not the greatest team. You know, and I think that was what was wrong with Bill Russell. He wasn't the best player on his team,
right. But he had
was
the
he?
greatest team, one of the greatest teams of all times.
He had the greatest team. You know what I'm saying? So yes, he has 11 championships, but honestly, can you say he led the Celtics to those 11 championships? I mean, he helped with the rebounds and with the defense and with the block shots, but somebody had to put the ball in the hole, and that was Casey
Right.
Jones,
That was
and that
Casey
was
Jones and
the other Hall of Famers. You know
John Havlicek.
that's your team. You know the names.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know
yeah,
the names. That's your team.
yeah. But they
You
had
know the
like
names.
5 Hall of Famers on that one team.
Five Hall of Famers
I
on the
think the starting
team,
five, yeah, the
as
starting
opposed
five was.
to
I think the starting five
as
was
opposed
all Hall
to
of Famers.
like LeBron's let's say his Cavs team that beat the Warriors. He had him and Kyrie, right?
But him, Kyrie, Love.
Is Kevin Love a Hall of Famer?
I wouldn't. And he was on the Hall of Fame arc with Minnesota. Let's not act like he was just trash. Let's act like he was fresh. I don't know what happened to him in Cleveland, but he wasn't a 27. What was it? It was averaging what, like 26 and 11 at Minnesota
When
before
you,
he came to the Cavaliers. And the reason why they wanted him on the
it's
Cavaliers because
like,
he was a big man that could shoot.
and honestly, he played his role because when you play with players like LeBron, when you play with Kobe, when you play with Mike, you have to play a role. You you got to play a role, and that's what happened to him. He played a role.
And
Does
fell
that
off the
hurt
face
it?
of the planet.
But
As far as that Hall
so
of
does
Fame
that hurt
arc,
his?
that hurt his case because he was at a Hall of Fame arc when he was in Minnesota. There's no denying that. I don't care what nobody say. The man was dominant in Minnesota. They just wasn't winning anything because the team around them, right? Let's not deny that.
Okay,
So LeBron said, I
and
need
how
a I
about
need a guy
Kyrie?
like he said I need a guy like Bosh, just like how Bosh was. Bosh was dominant in Toronto, but once he became Miami Heat, he wasn't the same. He wasn't the same guy in Toronto that he was in Miami. Period. Now that you can say that was injuries, you can say whatever, you know what I'm saying. What contributed to that wasn't LeBron, but he wasn't the same guy. I think we just got him frozen. Just a second. I think we're gonna bring him back. He wants to be Will Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Russell won championship in San Francisco. Yes, and he said we'll have 3 Hall of Famers also. So what I'm saying is that you do have to have a role. When LeBron, and that's my case about LeBron. People don't like LeBron because he went to Miami. That was his prerogative because he was a free agent. He can go wherever he wanted to. So he turned around. He went to Miami. They said, "Well, you linked up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh." Okay, that's what he
See,
did.
see, see. This is the problem. Everybody's spoiled by Magic Johnson, Michael
Right, the
Jordan,
loyalty of 80s
Larry
and
Bird,
90s.
and Kobe. If you take those out the equation, what did Shaq do to win a championship?
Yep,
What
he
did
went to
Wilt
LA.
Chamberlain do to win a championship? What
He
did
went to
Kareem
LA.
Abdul-Jabbar do, even though he had won in Milwaukee? To win multiple,
Went to the
he had to
Minneapolis
leave.
Lakers.
So this notion that you got to stay with one team is ridiculous.
Right, and not saying that, not saying that at all, because you make an excellent point when you say that. Well, Kareem, Shaq, you know what I'm saying? Plenty other players who went to other teams to go win. That's why I don't like the fact that people diss Kevin Durant when LeBron did the same exact thing. You can't say, "Oh, Durant, you know what I'm saying? He would have never won nothing if he went to Golden State and linked up with Draymond and with Klay Thompson and with Steph Curry." Well, LeBron went to go play with Dwayne Wade when he was still literally still D Wade. He went to go play with Chris Bosh, when Chris Bosh was just coming from the Olympics. He looked like Chris Bosh wasn't on that Olympic team, on that dream team that dominated. That dream team with Kobe on it. Let's not Vince Carter and all. So let's not act like that team wasn't dominant. And we just lost Rico. Rico, all you have to do is click that link again to come back on as a guest. So we act like that these guys are
I'm
just
back.
yeah. We act like like those guys was just poo poo. LeBron was no. He went to go to a team and said, "I need to learn how to win." Get that guy too. Why he at it? I ain't mad at you. Just like how after that team, that Golden State team had the guy that replaced the Durant plays. I can see his face, and I can't think of his name like offhand right now. They said, "Well, if Kevin is going to play for us, let's pay him. We got it under the cap." I'm not mad at him. You know what I'm saying? Who can be mad at that? I don't care if that team won 73 wins or won 82 or won 5. The man went to the team. They won a championship. It is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
And
So
you're your banners and your rings aren't going to say, "Oh, you had to leave to go get a championship."
Right,
Your
because
banner's not going to say
again,
that. Your ring is not
look,
going to say that.
right, you make an excellent point with Will and with Kareem. Kareem won a championship in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, one
Then
one,
turned
and
around
then
and
his
went to the
team was
Lakers.
garbage. Because his team was garbage after that.
Yeah, and then turned around and went to, and they didn't get any better into the '80s. They didn't get any better into the '80s with more not Maurice Cheeks. What's the kid's guy's name? The defensive player of the year that year that Michael Nim took a game off of. But then that's again, it's almost the same, almost the same point. The only difference with the Bulls of that time is that we're gonna go get, as far as a big man. They said, well, we can't win with this big man, so we're gonna go get Bill Cartwright. We're gonna trade Charles Oakley for Bill Cartwright. That's not like they was getting Shaq. It was getting Bill Cartwright. They was getting Bill Cartwright. They started, and I give Jerry Krause a lot of props on this. He started to build the team around there. John Paxson was there before Michael. You know what I mean? So he was a layover. They drafted B.J. Armstrong. They got Craig Hodges. They built players around Michael. But Michael was like, just like how LeBron is. And when I say this, people need to stop looking at this badly. Michael said, "I'm the scorer. All of y'all are the role players." Right? I'm gonna play defense and I'm gonna score the basketball. Y'all need to play in y'all roles, right? Under Doug Collins, right? LeBron goes to a team and says, "I'm going to rebound. I'm going to get you your assists. I'm going to facilitate the offense. All I need you to do is when I kick it to you, you make a shot." So what's the difference of Michael scoring 37 points and being the dominant role player as far as the score? Then and everybody said, "Well, LeBron, he's the only player that has so much on his plate." That's because he chose to put that on his plate. He could have easily said, "I'm not grabbing no rebounds. Chris Bosh, what are you there for? You are all of 6'11", and you don't want to grab no board. Go down there and grab board. Okay, Kevin Love,
See,
you go grab
I
board."
think that's a I think that's a misnomer, and everybody who doesn't know that, they probably need to watch The Last Dance again, because if you watch The Last Dance, you'll hear Michael Jordan say that it was a lot on his plate too, because the offense ran through
Through
him,
him, right? It ran through
and
him.
and he had to learn how to get his numbers, but still get everybody else involved. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot on his plate too.
Right,
If he didn't do his job, nobody else could do their job.
right.
So he had a big job. Mike had a big job.
So Kitty just put all Grayson's at 3 stars except for Detroit, and I'm not gonna give you that one. I'm not gonna give you that one, Kenny, because I'm gonna
Which
tell you this.
Detroit?
Wait. The Detroit teams
Which
that won
Detroit?
back-to-back championships. The Detroit teams that won back-to-back championships had Zeke. They had Joe Dumars. Let's not poo-poo on Joe Dumars. Man, I hate when people do that. They poo-poo on Joe
Yeah,
Dumars when Joe Dumars
he should be a
sucked,
Hall
but
of
he was just
Famer.
a role player.
He should be a Hall of Famer. He should be a
Right.
Hall of
He
Famer.
should be a Hall of Famer.
Joe
Dennis
Dumars should
Rodman.
be a Hall of Famer.
Yes, Dennis Rodman is a Hall of Famer. Greatest rebounder of all time. I ain't even close. I don't care what nobody say. Greatest defensive player
Is
or
Bill
rebounder of all time. I don't care what
is
no
Bill
one
Laimbeer a
say.
Hall of Famer?
No, Bill's
Is
not a
Bill
Hall of
Laimbeer a
Famer,
Hall of
but
Famer?
Bill should be.
He should
Bill
be.
should
He
be.
should be.
He should
These are
be.
these are guys that are getting ramrodded by the Hall of Fame. So I don't put too much stock in that. I know the eye test, and the eye test was that was a Hall of Fame team.
Yes.
Detroit Pistons 87, 88,
88.
89 Hall of Fame team.
Yes. Yes. And then he said that, well, the three big men in the 90s for the Bulls was Cartwright, Stacey King, and somebody I can't even think of right now. And nobody
Will
was
Purdue.
Will Purdue. All
Will
right, Will
Purdue.
Purdue. Will Purdue, because I forgot he got punched in the face. So yeah, Will Purdue, Bill Cartwright, and Stacey King. So what I'm saying is, when you're looking at this GOAT conversation, I look at errors. I do. I look at errors because who was dominant in their era? You know what I mean? LeBron was dominant in his era. Jordan was dominant in his era. What people put Jordan, what a lot of people put Jordan over LeBron is because Jordan never went anywhere. And we ain't talking about the tail of his career where he retired for 3 years and came back and tried to be a part of the management squad. A part of the management squad. Let's not act like he didn't try to be an owner of
but don't poo-poo
you
that
can't put
Jordan
on it.
neither.
Nope, you can't put
Because that
that
Jordan
either.
still put up 20 points a game.
Points a
Man,
game.
and if you've seen the eye test, if you've seen, it was still an old Jordan, but if you've seen the eye test, you've seen glimpses of a Jordan of old on that Wizards team. So
Right,
I hate when they try to poo-poo that Wizards Michael Jordan. That
right,
Wizards Michael Jordan was still a Michael Jordan.
right. Now that team was completely garbage, but still.
Kwame Brown.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know is Kwame Brown. That's all you need to know.
Oh.
Are you talking about Kenny? You was talking about the Detroit team that beat the Lakers. Did they beat the Lakers?
Yes, they beat the
Yeah,
Lakers.
that's right.
And okay, don't poo-poo that team. Chauncey Billups should be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Rip Hamilton was a great player. I don't care what nobody say.
Ben Wallace should
be a Hall of Famer. Rasheed Wallace should be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Rasheed Wallace should be a Hall of Famer.
And see, this is what I don't get. I got about 6 minutes left. This is what I don't get. When you go when they say, Jordan never faced a Hall of more than 3 Hall of Famers or something like that. First of all, what you people need to realize is that his Bulls teams were the Golden State Warriors of that time frame, where they made everybody else stupid. The only difference is that his 72 and 10 team was greater because they went throughout the playoffs and only lost, I think, a total of 5 games. So the total number of wins for the entirety of the season, that's regular season, playoffs, championship game, is completely higher than the Golden State Warriors team that went 73-9 because they were down 3-1 to Oklahoma and Oklahoma let them off the hook before they went around and got beat 3-1 again by the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the greatest team of all, if people say, well, that's the greatest team. No, it's not. Through the totality of the whole entire NBA season, the greatest team of all times is the 95-96 Bulls team that didn't lose more than 15 games the entirety of the season.
And that's why
the playoffs.
And that's why you gotta put it in perspective. That Golden State team was the best regular season team of all time.
Yeah,
just
by
like
one game.
You have a regular season MVP, and you have a regular season MVP, and then you have a Finals MVP.
Right.
The Chicago Bulls is the Finals MVP of all time because they won the championship that year.
And then
Golden State.
And we talked about this. Me and you always talk about this. People poo-poo on the Seattle Supersonics. Seattle Supersonics, they ain't no better than Miami. Are you kidding me? Nate McMillan, Devin Shrimp, a healthy guy. Huh?
Hold up, Dre. This is what people got to understand about Mike. Not only did he stop championships, he stopped Hall of Fame careers.
Yes.
Because once you build championships, that's what can say. Rajon Rondo, they talking about him going to the Hall of Fame now because he got 2 championships.
Yeah, because he got.
What if John Starks won 3 championships?
Right.
What if the Knicks? What if there was no Michael Jordan and the Knicks won 3 championships?
They be talking about John Starks.
Indiana. What if Indiana got 2 championships and Dale Davis and the other Davis were you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Were part of them teams. Would they be considered Hall of Famers?
Right.
Yes, they would.
Right.
Yes, they would. It's the fact that Michael Jordan and the Bulls stopped them.
Right. And then when people act like what's his name on the Supersonics? Now I can't think of his name.
Xavier McDaniel?
No, not Xavier McDaniel. what's his name? Sean Kemp. We
Oh,
okay. So
Kemp.
people talk about LeBron, like the big, fast, run the court. That was Sean Kemp. That was Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp couldn't shoot. That's the problem. When you talking about
Yeah,
somebody who can get to the
John Kemp
hole,
could shoot.
no, Sean Kemp couldn't shoot. Sean Kemp could not shoot a lick. When you talking about somebody big, fast, and who can get to the hole, who can lob, please. Sean Kemp was LeBron James as far as big, tall, fast, and could get to the hole where would duck on you in a heartbeat. The only problem was once they played that Bulls team, you didn't never hear about the Supersonics ever again. It went downhill. It went downhill. And Kemp never recovered from. And Kemp never recovered from that.
Matter of fact, because if you remember, after that year, they started having financial problems.
Yep.
The team started having financial problems. Again, Michael Jordan kills your franchises. He kills franchises. This dude kills your franchise. He killed Orlando. He killed New York. He made Oklahoma. He made them move to where they moved to. Where Seattle moved to? Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. That's what I'm saying. So you got to understand that
kills franchises.
And Kitty said numbers and rings get you in the Hall of Fame, and you're right. The reason why Stockton and Malone is in the Hall of Fame because of the numbers. You know what I mean?
Because of the numbers.
It's because of the numbers. The reason why some people are not in, like John Starks, I don't care what nobody say. They have a second player under Patrick Ewing, which was John Starks, and John Starks played defense on my Michael. Michael would get him because it's Michael Jordan, but we don't act. We act like we poo-pooing against John Starks, but John Starks used to go off, and we're talking about on Michael Jordan, going off on Michael Jordan. Hooping on Reggie Miller's the same way. We act like Reggie Miller didn't give Michael Jordan fits. We act like Anthony Hardaway didn't give Michael Jordan fits. So there was guys that was great, but Jordan was just greater. He was just dominant. I mean, it's nowhere to... And see, that's the difference. When you have someone who set the bar so high, and Michael set the bar so incredibly high, when you see someone like when you see a John Starks, or you see someone like LeBron James, who you feel like doesn't give the same effort. Before there was Mamba mentality, there was his airness. You know what I mean? And then he carried that into LeBron. LeBron carried that torch of that angry, I'm going to dominate you. I'm imperative for 81 points against Toronto, and you looking stupid. That's because of the diamond. So when you see somebody like LeBron,
oh, you mean Kobe?
Yeah, Kobe. So yeah, with Kobe's dominating. So when you see somebody like LeBron who doesn't have that same type of killer, that's what they call the killer mentality. That's really, I'm just going to dominate you and make you look stupid. You're like, oh, he's not as great as Jordan. He's not as great as Kobe. He don't take over games, but in a way he does, because the way he facilitates, he's just greater in this European style of basketball, like how Michael and Kobe was in the old NBA style of basketball.
Yeah.
Because I make this. And you said you agree with me on this. I said the NBA plays a European style of basketball now. Am I lying?
Oh man, with the Euro steps and the open threes and the rule changes, yeah, they made it to where it's an international game now. It's not like it was before.
Wait a minute. I don't like this comment. I'm tell you why I don't like this comment, Kenny. Because everybody's talking about how they have to wait to get old. I don't want to hear nothing about old. Because old man was winning championships. So I don't want to hear nothing about nobody old. They act like it was 50-year-old dudes coming to play from the YMCA and coming to go play against Michael. I don't want to hear nothing about old. 31, 32 years old is not old. Because if that's the case, LeBron James is old, right? He's the oldest. The old man don't even need to play right now. So I don't want to hear nothing about nobody old. I don't want to hear jack about that.
I do. Dre, I do. You know. I do have to put this in though. Mike did get to dodge the Lakers when they were the Lakers. He dodged them. He didn't get to play the Lakers when they were the Lakers.
Yeah, because Detroit's a better team. in Detroit, and that's why I said, about Detroit, and they should have more Hall of Famers because they beat those Lakers. They beat the Showtime Lakers not once, twice.
And Boston, because he didn't get to play Boston when he only played Boston once. He only played Boston once when they were Boston, and he lost.
Right.
He lost. Now it was an epic loss.
That team was garbage.
It was an epic loss, but it was a loss.
That team was trash. That team, and you know they trash. And you got to lose the records coming into.
And that's why I don't blame LeBron for a bunch of his losses, because I don't blame Mike for a bunch of his losses.
No, I don't.
Everybody says that we give Mike a pass for his losses, and we don't give LeBron James for his losses. The only loss I don't give LeBron James a pass for is Dallas. The rest of the losses in the NBA Finals, I give LeBron James a pass. He had to go up against San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like
three times.
Just like
San Antonio 3 times.
But see, this the thing. The difference between Mike going against Boston in '84. Mike was a rookie. That team shouldn't even have been in the playoffs. Period. They shouldn't have never been in the playoffs because they was under 500.
Dre, I'm gonna put my definitive stamp on this GOAT conversation. This is why Michael Jordan is the GOAT. This is my opinion. If you were to create a player, a perfect player, it would be LeBron James. If you was to create a player, it would be LeBron James. So they called him the chosen one when he was a junior in fucking high school.
Yeah, in high school.
So they knew what he was going to be, and he did it.
Right. He did.
Michael Jordan got cut as a junior in high school. Nobody thought this guy was going to be nothing. Michael Jordan is the ultimate overachiever.
LeBron beat the dynasties in San Antonio. No, he didn't. LeBron got beat. Let me take that back. Because they beat that Miami team. That Miami team
with Ray Allen. The team before, without Ray Allen, lost. But the team with Ray Allen, when you got 4 Hall of Famers, of course you're going to win.
Yeah. And people, and at the end of the day, Dwayne Wade, Ray Allen, because Ray Allen going to Boston is going to help get in the Hall of Fame. And you got LeBron, Ray Allen, and because of Chris Bosh's career, because Chris Bosh, again, to me, was on the Hall of Fame arc into the blood.
He was on the Hall of Fame arc. From Toronto and Miami, he was on the Hall of Fame arc, and injuries derailed it.
Right. And so you technically could have had 3 Hall of Famers versus 3. And to me, to make Tim Duncan first ballot Hall of Famer, I believe. Yeah. I don't know how Kawhi's career is going to end because of right now in the Clippers. I don't know if he can't win in the Clippers. It's going to be shaky for him to get into the Hall of Fame. It's going to be shaky for him to get into the Hall of Fame if he floats in L.A. Just to me. I mean, he won in Toronto.
His 2 championships might solidify him.
Yeah, but it might. Yeah, to me, if Joe Dumars is not in the Hall of Fame, Kawhi should be in the Hall of Fame. That's just me. That's just me. I'm sorry. Because you had to have a second co-star. You had to have a second co-star with Zeke. Because Zeke wasn't just winning just by itself. Joe Dumars was a baller.
It was Joe Dumars.
Joe Dumars was a baller. So, that's just me. But, again, if you look at the team that beat San Antonio, Kawhi was what, a second-year player that year? He was a second-year player?
Yeah, second year.
So really, it was Tony Parker, Monty Ginobili, and Tony Parker, Monty Ginobili.
But that second-year player won the Finals MVP. He won the Finals MVP. So
I still don't know how
he played his butt off.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Even though LeBron still averaged like 30-something points.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. And can he say he's going to the Hall of Fame? I don't think so. I don't. Man, he might. He might. Let me say this. He might, because he got more hype on him now.
But I don't hear nobody saying San Antonio was an old team, and I know Tim Duncan was past his 30s. Nobody say, oh man, they only won because San Antonio got old. See, this is what I'm saying. Y'all always say that stuff about Mike, but y'all never say that about LeBron against San Antonio. Oh yeah, yeah. Nobody says that, and that's like I said. When you start talking about Detroit got old, when Detroit was getting ready to three-peat in 1990
Yeah,
and 91, and they got swept.
Detroit was trying, and there was nobody talking about they were old because I remember collecting basketball
Nobody.
cards back in the day. Nobody was talking about they was
When they
old. They
were
was
in
talking
their
about
late
three P. They
look,
were talking
no,
about three P.
right, and nobody was talking about they were old. Nobody was talking about these dudes was in their late 20s, early 30s. People in their late 20s, early 30s played teenagers back in old 80s and 90s movies. So I don't want to hear nothing about them not being old because of if they were old in 89, 90, then I'm 100 years old right now. And you're 102. I'm just saying. So again, I gotta go. I'm about to wrap this up.
All
I
righty.
might do this. Hey, Rico, you want to do this again tonight?
You already
Okay,
know.
okay, no,
You
no.
already know.
So let me get off of
No,
here.
I'm saying yeah. I'm saying
No,
yeah.
somebody else said no.
Oh, ooh, ooh, oh,
I
oh,
don't want to hear nothing about
oh,
nobody hurt their wrist, Kenny, because nobody said
oh.
anything. And nobody said anything about that 88-89 team when Jordan scored 37 points and how they could have beat Detroit, but Scottie Pippen had a migraine that game and they got wore out. So I don't want to hear nothing about injuries. I don't want to hear nothing about I don't want to hear nobody. They back fell out. I don't want to hear nothing about nothing. I don't want to hear jack. They lost. If they was old enough to get on the court, they was old enough to get put across the knee, just like how Jordan got put across the knee and got beat up. So I don't want to hear nothing about nothing.
How
They
about part
lost.
two on Friday? How about part two on Friday?
Yeah, we do part two on Friday.
Part two on Friday.
All right. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I appreciate everybody who stopped in on the Dre Mac Show through StreamYard,
Peace.
everybody who's watching right now on Facebook and YouTube, everybody who's listening in on Speaker Radio. I am out. Peace. Shalom to everyone.
Peace. Go Lakers.
All right. We'll do this. We'll do it again on Friday. But I'm gonna
Yeah,
call you
yeah.
after I get off the phone. I mean after I get out of here.
Okay. Okay.
All right.